My Life in Ethiopia's Progress, Chapter 7, from the deposition of Lejayasu on 17th Maskaram, 1909, which is 27th September 1916, to the assumption of the crown by Queen Zauditu on the 4th of Yakatit, 1909, which is 11th of February 1917. While Lejayasu went to and fro between the towns of Dayadawa, Harar, Jijiga, and while he assembled Adalites and Somalis, giving them medals and arms, he stayed there declaring, "I am on your side in respect of religion." It was then heard that Muslims were mocking, "He is neither Christian nor Muslim." On the 17th day of Maskaram, 1909, which is the 27th of September 1916, on the day of the great feast of Maskal, it was arranged that the nobles with the army and the Archbishop Abuna Matiwos and the Ichegag, while the Georges with the priests should assemble at the prepared place with the precinct of the palace. When they had all arrived and had taken their seats according to their rank, the following indictment against Lejayasu, which had been secretly prepared, was read out. The Christian faith, which our fathers had hitherto carefully retained by fighting for their faith with the Muslims and by shedding their blood, Lejayasu exchanged for the Muslim religion and aroused commotion in our midst. In order to exterminate us by mutual fighting, he has converted to Islam, and therefore we shall henceforth not submit to him. We shall not place a Muslim king on the throne of a Christian king. We have ample proof of his conversion to Islam. 1. He married 4 wives, claiming, "The Quran permits me to it." Of these wives, one is the daughter of Abba Jafar of the Jima nobility. The second is the daughter of Hajj Abdullahi of the Harar nobility. The third is the daughter of Abu Bakr of the Adal nobility. The father of the fourth, the Jach Dejote, became a Christian and baptized his daughter while she lived under her baptismal name, Askala Mariam. It was to Dejach Dejote's daughter that he, Lejayasu, later on, after his conversion to Islam, gave the Muslim woman's name of Momina. 2. He built a mosque at Jijiga with government funds and gave it to the Muslims. 3. At the time he sent to Mahazar Bey, the foreign Turkish consul resident at Addis Ababa, as he was celebrating the Ramadan feast, our Ethiopian flag, on which there was written, "The Lion of the tribe of Judah has prevailed," and adorned with the sign of the cross, on which he had caused to be written the following words in Arabic: "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah." 4. He wore Somali Muslim clothes and the Muslim turban, held the Islamic rosary, and was seen to prostrate himself in the mosque. 5. He was seen praying and reading the Quran, having it had transcribed into Amharic characters. 6. On the headgear of his special guards, he had embroidered the legend, "There is no God but Allah." 7. His Highness Ras Makonnen had built a church at Harar and had made the area adjoining the church into a dwelling for the clergy, giving the Muslims a place in exchange. Then, 32 years later, he, Lejayasu, expelled the clergy and restored it to the Muslims. 8. When a girl was born to him, he saw to it that she would grow up learning the Muslim religion, and he gave her to the Muslim Madame Hanafi and said, "Bring her up on my behalf." 9. He despised the descent of Menelik II, which comes direct from Menelik I, and claimed to be descended from the Prophet Muhammad. Assembling the great Muslim sheikhs, he spent the day convincing them of his genealogical calculations. 10. The day on which our great king, Emperor Menelik, who hath bequeathed him the throne, died, instead of mourning and arranging lamentations, he went out horse riding to Jan Mida and spent the day playing combat games. He forbade Menelik's body to be buried with dignity and thus it has remained up to now. We possess a great deal further, a similar proof against Lejayasu. Therefore, having deposed him, Lejayasu, we have placed on the throne Wazero Zauditu, Emperor Menelik's daughter. We have appointed the Jazmash Tafari, the son of His Highness Ras Makonnen, Crown Prince, with the rank of Ras and Regent of the Empire. When the reading of this proclamation was concluded, all those assembled said with one voice, "We accept gladly, hence let it be carried out with success." The Archbishop, Abuna Matiwos, and the Ichage, Walda Georgis, spoke the following final words. Lej Ayasu has repudiated the Christian religion, and because he has been converted to the Islamic faith, we have excommunicated him. You will become excommunicated if henceforth you follow Lej Ayasu and submit to him. Instead of living strong in the Orthodox faith and watchful of the freedom of your government. Afterwards, the proclamation was issued by which the throne and the crown went to Queen Zauditu, while the succession to the throne and regency plenipotentiary went to me. The text of the proclamation was then transmitted by telephone to the princes and nobles and all the provincial governors, sing the whole of Ethiopia. As it was about 40 years since Negus Mikhail had been converted from Islam to Christianity, he had been mentioning to us, some of the nobles, his sadness at his son's conversion to Islam. Consequently, the text of the proclamation was transmitted to him in the thought that he would be bound to be allied with us now as regard his son's deposition. When Lejayasu, staying at Hara, heard about his own deposition, the enthronement of Queen Zauditu, and my appointment as Crown Prince and Regent Plenipotentiary, he collected Somalis and Adalites and arranged for disturbances to be created in the city. As Christians and Muslims were now fighting on separate sides, some 500 men from both sides died. At the Jazmach Balcha and Kagnazmach, now Ras Emru, who at the time at Hara, they were seized. But Lejayasu released the Jazmach Balcha under oath that he would not get separated from him. Kagnazmach Emru, however, he kept under detention. All my officers and servants, with few exceptions, who were at Hara, deserted Lejayasu, departed for a district called Karsa, and began to wait there in proper battle formation. Kagnazmach Emru escaped from the place at which he had been detained and went out there. This what happened to Lejayasu subsequently. Having collected a regular body of troops, he appointed the Jazmach Gugsa Ale Alio as army commander, so it was reported that Lejayasu had dispatched him to Awash. We made the Jazmach Aleyu Beru army commander and sent the Judge Haile Mariam Lama, the Judge Admasu Beru, Lij Ababa Damtau, Lij Dasta Damtau, Fitarari Makuria Gar Mami, and added other regular troops. They encountered each other at a railway station called Miizo, and on the 25th of Maskaram, which is the 6th of October, they defeated the Jajmach Gugsa Alio. He himself, however, escaped by train and entered Dayadawa. When Lejayasu saw that the Christians at Hara and its entire province, as well as the Muslims, were deserting him, he went down to Dayadawa and seized about all he could of the money in the treasury. What he could not take, he sent to Djibouti by the hands of M. Idilibi, and he traveled by way of the Adal Desert to reach his father's governorate of Walu. But a telephone message had been transmitted to Negus Mikhail to the effect, "As your son has gone over to Islam, we have deposed him, enthroned Queen Zauditu, and appointed His Highness Tafari Makonnen Crown Prince and Regent Plenipotentiary." When Negus Mikhail realized this, he said, "I had been striving to make my son firm in the Christian faith, even to the point of angrily counseling him. But nevertheless, I cannot silently look on while they take away from him the throne which his grandfather, Emperor Menelik, had given him. It was reported that Negus Mikhail had mobilized his army by proclamation and was marching towards Shoa. Therefore, the princes, nobles, and ministers jointly sent him the following message in writing. May it reach Negus Mikhael, whose authority is written upon his shoulder, King of Zion. You, King, know that all the works which your son Lejayasu has accomplished from the time he became crown prince up to the present was childish behavior. When we meant to train him with reproachful counsel, we did not find the occasion because to our chagrin, he never stayed long enough in one place. When at times we managed to find him and tendered advice, he would not accept our view. When we watched him patiently, lest his personality should feel offended, thinking that perhaps one day soon he would become aware of his government's needs and of his own rank and honor, and perhaps abandon his useful pursuits. Yet he had still not had enough of these perelia and began striving to establish Islam in our country, Ethiopia, which had lived steadfast in her Christianity for some 1600 years, since Abriha and Atzbiha and Salama, the revealer of the light. When in the previous year he came to Walu, you, O king, know yourself all the things he did together with the Muslims during the rainy season. Again, we have heard of your angry counsel to Lejayasu, when you recognized that his heart had been alienated from the Christian faith, and said to him, I beg you, my son, abandon this plan of yours. Yet even you, O king, did not prevail. And now we are sending you, together with this letter, photographs of him, which proves all the things he has been doing jointly with the Muslims when he went down to Harar secretly without informing us. We had suffered all this patiently, but when all of us together, including the archbishops and the Ichage, sent him a letter requesting him to come to Addis Ababa, at any rate for the New Year's celebration, he persisted in not coming. Our anxiety in acting in this manner arises from the thought lest the Christian faith be extinguished, and for this reason, the blood of Christians be shed in vain and our country pass into the hands of foreigners. May the king thus be very mindful of this matter. It is known that the people would not have risen up unless they had been certain of this. Moreover, we would remind you of the extinction of your name as well, for it is bound to remain recorded in history for future generations. Because of Lejayasu, Negus Mikhael's son, the Christian religion was eclipsed in Ethiopia, and the Islamic faith expanded. In writing all this to the king, it is not that we have acted thus with intention that Lejayasu be harmed, or in particular, that the king be antagonized, but it is with the thought that we should act jointly for what is of benefit to our religion and our government. Your plans do not diverge from ours, for we know that you love Emperor Menelik and all of us, and are much concerned for the Christian faith. 24th of Mascaram, 1909, which is the 5th of October, 1916. After this letter had reached Negus Mikhael, he refused to return in any circumstance. And as our envoys informed us by telephone of his marching forward, we placed the army that was stationed at Addis Ababa at the time under the command of Rasulul Sagad and sent him on in advance. When he reached a Shoan district called Torah Mask, he suddenly encountered Negus Mikhael's advanced troops, and on Tuesday, 7th, Tekempt, the 17th of October, 1916, we heard by telephone of the death in battle of Rasulul Sagad, the Judge Tasama Gazmu, Lika Makwas Ababa Atnaf Sagad, Fitarari, Zaude Gobana, Asalafi Abe, Kagnazmach, Del Nasahu, Asalafi Delnasase, Ato Shawaye, and other army commanders. Already earlier on, our war minister, Fiterari Habte Georges, had left Addis Ababa on the 3rd of Tekempt, which is the 13th of October. And when he reached Koramash after a long march, we arranged that he should stay there distributing to each soldier arms from the war material at Koramash. And we ourselves set out on the 9th of Tekempt, which is the 19th of October, so that the armed forces from each district should arrive by as rapid a march as possible. We informed the army by the following proclamation, the text of the proclamation. Listen, people of my country, Ethiopia. Since Lejayasu, digressing from Emperor Menelik's wishes, had openly shown his adherence to Islam, prostrating himself in mosques together with Muslims and tracing back his Islamic genealogy, while setting aside Menelik's curse against him, designed to prevent him from committing evil deeds. He was unable to carry on the administration, and we therefore had to depose him and place Queen Zauditu on her father's throne. While we were thinking that Negus Mikhail was aware of his son's conversion to Islam, and that together with us he would be shedding his blood for the Christian faith, he came marching from Wallo to fight us and insisting that we should at once submit to a Muslim king. Therefore, those of you who are men, follow me. After we had issued this proclamation, we marched forward. But since bloodshed amongst Ethiopians themselves is extremely saddening, I arranged that monks and priors from the monastery of Dabra Lebanos and Zekwala, and from the various churches should be selected and come with their crosses to request Negus Mikhail to go back to Wallo without making war. But word reached us by telephone that Negus Mikhail, far from going back, had in fact seized and arrested the monks who had been sent to bring about peace. We thus became convinced that his decision to engage in battle was now plain and generally known. On 15th Tekempt, which is the 25th of October, we set out from Karamash and marched on. On the 16th Tekempt, which is the 26th of October, our camp and that of Negus Mikhail spent the night opposite each other at a plain of the Tara district called Sigale. On Friday, the 17th Tekempt, which is the 27th of October, starting at 7 o'clock at night, which is 1 a.m., he, Negus Mikhail, stationed his army officers on the right and left flanks and positioned himself in the center. And when the morning dawned, he began opening fire and launched a surprise attack against our gunners, who had been spending the night on guard duty. Thereupon, we placed our war minister, Fiterari Habta Georges, at the front, Raskasa at Negus Mikhail's rear, and the remaining Rasses and the jazz matches on the right and left flanks. When we had joined the entire army at the rear, we engaged the enemy in battle. When we had fought from early morning for about 5 hours, and when the Showan army, leaping like a leopard seeing a goat, like a lion seeing a cow, entered in battle formation, swords drawn and fighting hand to hand, Negus Mikhail was defeated and captured. Of his army, many died and many were captured, while those who remained fled and returned to Wallo. When Lejayasu, having to travel by way of the Adal country and marching fast to reach the battle, arrived at Ankobo, he heard of Negus Mikhail's defeat and retraced his steps and got to the Wallo region of the Adal by the Adal detour. Although it was generally known that Negus Mikhail had been captured, this was a formality only. In fact, we arranged everything befitting of his dignity so that no humiliation whatever should affect him. As for the other prisoners, since we have no other quarrel with Wallo and mindful of the fact that we are all natives of one Ethiopia, we allowed them by proclamation to go back to their country of Wallo after their release. As we announced the story of the victory at the Addis Ababa by telephone, all the people of the capital, from Queen Saudi to downwards, were overjoyed. When we go back to Ethiopia, to Addis Ababa on Thursday, 23rd of Tekhemt, which is the 2nd of November, Her Majesty Queen Saudi II, seated in a vast tent at Jan Mida, and the people of the capital, being assembled in full, received us with great parade, with ululating and with joy.